Gunna, the hip-hop Atlanta artist, has been a massive topic of conversation around hip-hop and pop culture lately. That being for Snitching, Gunna, along with Young Thug and many other members of YSL, were arrested and taken to jail in May of 2022. This was a huge shock to many fans of hip-hop. Most people assumed that Young Thug and YSL as a gang had been left in the past after Young Thug had become a true superstar around 2018 or 2019. But as we've heard from the media and police chiefs, they claim YSL is still a gang and was responsible for a number of drug charges and even murder. Prosecutors are also claiming they believe Young Thug is the gang leader and is calling the shots and hits to other gangs around Atlanta. Now, how does this come back to Gunna? Well, because Gunna is very closely associated with Young Thug and was clearly a part of YSL, Gunna may have not been a part of any of the gang activities and was strictly making music, but he had to know something about YSL as a gang, and that's why they arrested him as well. How this comes back to him snitching is, in December 2022, Gunna was released from jail on a plea deal that had him accept time served in jail and special tasks, which included 500 hours of community service. Now, what this tells me is Gunna is going to have to testify against Young Thug in court. I'm not an attorney, nor do I know a ton about law, but I can see what the prosecutors are doing here. They are offering Gunna a deal that, for him, is perfect. He gets out of jail and has to do some community service and may have probation or something like that. But what I'm sure Young Thug has come to realize is that he was just a chess piece in the game to take Young Thug down. The prosecution will more than likely call Gunna to the stand and he will have to tell the truth. Gunna will have to look Young Thug in the face and say that he was the gang leader and Gunna never intended to be involved and just wanted to make music. I'm sure it's gonna kill Gunna to have to do that, but at the end of the day, he wants to be free, and he's doing what he can do so he can continue his career. However, Gunna may have just shot himself in the foot by accepting that plea deal. After Young Thug's trial is all finished, and if he is convicted and goes to prison, Gunna will have a terrible public reputation. He will be known as a snitch, and people will clown him constantly, go back to his old lyrics, and call him out for being hypocritical. However, if somehow Young Thug gets out of prison, I'm not sure what Gunna's public reputation will be like, but I think most people understand Young Thug is probably going to do some time. How much, I have no idea, but it could be 10 plus years. After Young Thug's trial finishes up and Gunna has to continue to be a mainstream superstar hip-hop artist, I just don't see how people will still listen and believe Gunna's music. I'm sure he'll release another album and people will tune in and it'll do pretty good numbers, but that'll mostly be from hype of the fact that he snitched on Young Thug and people are tuning in. It's sort of like the same type of thing after 6ix9ine was released and he had that song that went number 1 as an independent artist. It's escaping me what the name of that song was, but it went number 1 and it was like a huge moment. But the only reason it went big was because 6ix9ine had just been released from jail and people wanted to hear what 6ix9ine had to say after he snitched. Don't get me wrong, Gunna has some great songs. I've personally liked about 5 to 8 songs from each of his projects, but I see him falling to a similar situation where 6ix9ine is, where he'll still be relevant, but the fans and the narrative will start to change over time. Because if you remember at first when 6ix9ine first got released, he had a ton of hype, a ton of people tuning in. He had that super massive Instagram live that I think broke records at the time. It was a big, big deal. However, I don't think Gunna has capitalized quite as well as 6ix9ine has. He had a song ready and I think he released it within the first 2 weeks of his release. So this is a bit of a different situation. I understand that Gunna has probably taken some more time stepping away because he wants to finish Young Thug's trial, but I think he ultimately knows where his fate lies after the trial. And that's just how mainstream audiences will see him as. The real fans, however, they will stop listening. The fans of Young Thug and found out about Gunna from Young Thug, they'll see Gunna as an absolute traitor. They'll say Gunna snitched on a guy who gave him a career in music, something a lot of people would kill for, and then snitched on him and let him sit in prison, probably, potentially for the rest of his life. But maybe 10 plus years. A long time. You can't forget either that the diehard fans are the ones who make the narrative. Without a doubt, the narrative is already starting to switch that Gunna is a snitch, and he doesn't deserve to have the fame he has. Now, the vast majority of people saw he was released, and were like, that's good, and moved on with their life. However, the diehard fans are more attached to the music than the mainstream fans, and they will have a very hard time listening to Gunna and not just immediately start to think, this guy helped put Young Thug in prison. And again, the narrative starts with the diehard fans, and they will constantly clown Gunna, and it will start to seep into his reputation. I think it'll take some time because of how big Gunna really is before we see the effects of this. My guess as to when the narrative will completely change, and the narrative will be Gunna is a snitch and don't listen to his music because he snitched on Young Thug, could be at least a year. A ton of people will still tune into Gunna's music as he releases more albums, and people will say don't listen to Gunna or the new album is trash. People will constantly clown him online, and eventually that will catch up to you. I personally think Gunna is done as a mainstream artist. He'll have probably one more good album that does good numbers, but after that, people will start to clown him and constantly say the albums are trash or constantly say he's a snitch, and that will tend to ruin your reputation online and in real life. I feel bad for Gunna because he's doing the right thing, honestly, but he also knows what the cost is going to be when and if he does have to take the stand and testify against Young Thug. That will without a doubt affect his legacy forever. Thanks for watching.